So Steven Crowder has brought back his black and white on the gray issues. We saw about a week or two ago, he brought back his Change My Mind, said he hasn't done in years. I personally like these better. I feel like they're more intense and I feel like they're more productive too. So with this one, he goes into a black-owned barbershop, talks to a bunch of black people about kind of race relations going on in America right now. They seem more intense than they have been in decades. So they're kind of talking out the issues of why it's perceived one way or the other. And Crowder makes a lot of interesting points. I just want to point out a few clips I have here. So I'm just going to start off right here.
I don't know if you guys were following the stabbing there on that train in Charlotte, Irina Zarutska. Last time I was asking where you guys thought we were, as far as in the country relation. You guys heard of the term black fatigue? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You guys know what that means?
Since the last time you came, that's become a thing.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's just become a recent thing.
And do you know what it means?
I'm not sure.
I'm going to ask that.
It's a term that's being used by people in the white community, by and large, again, saying they feel like they've been victimized and they're tired of taking that shit. That was a girl who was dying alone in public. And that was a guy who was let out 14 times, including violent crimes in the name of racial justice, right? He didn't have to post bail. He didn't have to appear back in court. This is not the first time he's assaulted someone.
How do we know that was in the interest of racial justice as opposed to just being
because the judge said it.
A fucked up attempt at justice, period.
Yeah.
Like, the legal system has its flaws.
Yeah.
And people have been making complaints about that for decades, right? But that's just, to me, that's a mental health thing more than it's a black and white thing.
Well, I'll tell you why,
Well, so for this, first off, North Carolina back in 2020 got rid of their cashless bail after what happened with George Floyd. A lot of other states followed suit with this, and they all said it was in response to racial injustice. So they didn't specifically, cash bail didn't explicitly go away because of this one dude, but it was already away due to racial injustice, and that he benefited from it. And then also, he already had the 3-strike rule, got arrested again, and I think they deemed him unfit and they released him. And then they said he had to do some mental health evaluation in July. So he's going down the mental health route here, which he clearly had some mental health issues. And he just never showed up and never did it. And there was no consequences for it. And then he did what he did.
White people are saying it now.
Right.
Not just white people are saying, hey, we're in
what makes it a bigger thing.
Well, because, white people are 12 times as likely to be killed by a black person than the other way around. I'm just going to shoot you straight. It's not even close.
Where?
Across the country.
Where? Not in
the United States. I mean, we're not talking about Ghana. Yeah.
What I'm saying is, in white communities or in quote unquote so-called white communities,
across the country, the rate is a black man or person, because most murders men. There are very few female murders. 12 times more likely to kill a white person the other way around. And then you look at the average amount of times that someone in this country is arrested before they're brought in for killing, charged with murder. Do you know how many times they're arrested on average before they murder? 11 times.
Once again, the justice system's got its flaws, and people have been complaining about that for years. We spend more time trying to fix that than trying to complain about the white versus black of it all.
Well, I think, just like I was trying to listen to all communities last time, I think this is something that's unavoidable. If this community, if enough white people get pissed off, they're going, look, we're living in New York now, we're getting killed in record numbers, or Detroit, 12 times the rate. And our system, 3 strikes in California, right? That was a 3-strike policy. The reason that was changed, it said it was racist. Crime went down in black communities 30%. But now people are looking at their cities going, this is a fucking hellscape. And the murder is skyrocketed because people said in the name of racial justice, 3 felonies, you're out.
Because crime is crime, right? But crime is usually going to be higher concentrated in areas where there's high poverty. So typically the areas that's high poverty in this country are areas with people with this color skin. So that's why you're going to have that. That's why I said those numbers could be skewed and made to manipulate to look like, oh, yeah, that's why I said in
not at 12 times the rate.
In suburban neighborhoods, white people are not in danger. And that's what this kind of fear-mongering tells them, is that you're in danger because you're 12 times more likely to get killed by a black person.
See, that's the thing that gets me. Is you can argue maybe robbery, carjacking, stuff like that, breaking and housing, is due to poverty, people trying to steal stuff so then they can sell it to a pawn shop to get some money. A lot of that still is kind of drug related, though. It's not all poverty. Drugs play a big part in this too. But a lot of gang violence, whereas one gang murdering the other gang, that's not poverty. That's just inner city violence. And that's probably the most common thing in places like Chicago and Baltimore and Detroit and all these other big major cities. And you can't really blame that on poverty. That doesn't make any sense.
You live in ain't nobody coming after you. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody tripping on you. But these people just as scared as the other folks.
They are if they get on a bus.
Not necessarily.
They are if they get on a train.
That lady wasn't in danger because that man was black. That lady was in danger because that man was crazy.
Nope.
That man was mentally insane.
But why was he back in
family members? He had his own family members call the hospital to try to get him committed. He told his sister he killed that woman because he thought she was trying to read his mind.
Yep.
That's
why was he let out, though?
And
I'm not saying it's because he's black.
Yeah,
I'm saying people look at it, though. The judge said
part of black fatigue.
He's insane, right? We agree.
That's not a black and white issue.
He was deemed not fit to stand trial, right?
Right.
Now,
he should have been institutionalized.
Right. The IOU policy, meaning you don't have to pay bail. You don't even have to stay here until you're actually convicted. You just say you'll come back.
Right, which is messed up.
Yeah, the judge, Teresa Stokes, black woman, said, well, this is about racial justice. We need to be softer on crime. So that's her reasoning. That's why he was out. And you can find dozens of examples.
That's her misguided reasoning.
And that's policy.
But that's systemic, though, right?
That's not representative of a whole.
It's not. It's not. No, and look, we always have to say not all.
Right.
Like, not all white people wear MAGA hats and are dumbass pieces of racist shit. But we have all been accused of racism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia. What I'm saying is black fatigue is white people going, you know what? I know I'm not racist. And I know that we're dealing with record crime, and I know that I'm more at risk. And they have negative interactions, and they're constantly told that they're not allowed to voice their fucking opinion because they're white. And if those people get pissed off, like that's where we actually could end up with some kind of, I'm telling you, I see this brewing. I see people who were milquetoast white suburban who are becoming actually racist. Now, not all of them, but I've seen people actually become racist because they get mugged, their store gets looted, and nothing gets done. They're going, and if I say something, it's turned into a race thing. I'm telling you what, that's where it's coming from. At what point do we have a talk and go like, okay, let's reform justice, but we have to be honest as to why it was reformed in the first place. This guy, it's not even the only one. It's every 3 days someone's being offed.
Yeah, but at the same time, let's transfer that over to, there's a lot of unsafe things in this world. Like, getting mugged by a black person is not the paramount unsafe thing. There's school shootings, there's road rage, there's all of that shit.
Yep.
And the primary people that commit a lot of those are people who don't have this skin.
No.
So if switch it over, if black people say, well, we getting fed up and we tired of all these school shootings and all of these road rage and all that, who do we say something to? Who hears our voice?
And when does the white fatigue kick?
So this is a good point here, I think, shows how powerful the media is. So he's like, all these school shootings, all these road rages that happen more. They don't happen more. Because if you look at the murder rates in the whole country, black people commit about 52%, I think, of all murders in the country. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't pay attention to school shootings, road rage. That stuff's horrible too. And I think any person on this planet will say that stuff is horrible. But the media blows up a story about a school shooting, which people need to know about that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. So everyone sees it and they're like, wow, this is crazy. In that same time frame, there will be dozens and dozens and dozens of inner city shootings that the media doesn't talk about. They don't talk about what goes on in Baltimore. They don't talk about what goes on in Chicago. Like right now, Pritzker and Mayor Johnson are fighting Trump on sending the National Guard to Chicago, saying it's safe. Meanwhile, if you literally just search Chicago shooting weekend, it'll be like this weekend, 12 shootings, 4 dead. This weekend, 18 shootings, 6 dead. It's every single weekend. It's all throughout the week in Chicago. They literally are the murder capital of the country and have been for 13 years. The media doesn't tell you about that though. So that's why I think these people have like kind of a misperception, and a lot of people in general have a misperception of where the crime comes from. And it's not their fault. The media is lying to them, or they're not being full truth with them. And I think that's wrong. The media needs to be held accountable for that. They can't just keep skewing the truth to people and warping people's perceptions. That's wrong. I want to get to this next clip.
It's completely flawed. And what I mean by that is, if we're trying to understand it, you said you have power in all those institutions.
Yes.
What if, for example, you have an entire generation of people, young white men, women, who if they apply to a college or apply to a job, they don't have a grant, there's no Pell Grant, there's no type of subsidy, there's no DEI initiative. As a matter of fact, they're likely to be passed over. They hold no institutional power. And when you say black people haven't done anything, when you think of this white person, a young white person, because I'm seeing some people become radicalized and it can become a problem. Yeah. And then they see billions of dollars and riots and damages all summer long, and then they go, why is this happening? Black Lives Matter, right? So they're going to make that connection. Now, they have no institutional power, but if they go into a neighborhood that's largely black, they're going to get the shit kicked out of them. And they're being blamed for something that supposedly their racist forefather did that they have nothing to do with. You think we're ever going to have unity? This is the problem. Unity, if let's say your dad's a or your grandfather's a and you walk up and you slap his teenager, you now have made that person hate you for life. And that's what I'm seeing with not even my generation. Younger people are going, I had nothing to do with this shit. They came up during the riots. They've come up under DEI, and they're seeing a 12-time murder rate, skyrocketing crime, and any proposals they make not holding institutional power shut down as racist.
Now, why was DEI even instituted in the first place? Because for the majority of time that black people have been in this country and been free, we've been denied so much. Somebody somewhere had to put some things in place to provide access of some kind.
If you believe that, that's fine, but you can't tell that young white kid who had nothing to do with it that he should just sit down and take it, especially when they're getting killed.
That's what America's been telling us for the longest.
The young white man
that
has to
See, I think this is where another disconnect is. Like, I think all of us can agree back, before the civil rights movement, back when slavery was around, stuff, all that stuff's bad things, right? Black people weren't treated equally. They had 3/5 vote. They had to be in their own areas of the country. They were segregated. Yeah, we all can agree that's bad, right? That doesn't happen anymore. Everyone's equal now, and that's the thing too. It's what they're going too far, like the other way. This is what the left wants to do. So now, instead of just making everyone equal and moving forward and realizing everything in the past was bad, they're like, no, now we need to full on correct the other way. Let's implement a DEI and affirmative action and all this stuff. And you have situations, they act like it doesn't happen, where companies literally will hire based on race. It's not based on merit, not based on qualifications. It's based on race. There was the Shell gas station, the oil company Shell was literally caught firing all their higher up white people just because they were white, and replacing them with unqualified black people and Latino people. And they were people that were so low ranking in the company. They put them in those positions because they wanted to look good. This happens all throughout the country. It's happening less and less now because people are paying attention to it. People are calling it out. And Trump's been kind of pushing to put an end to it, where it should be merit-based. And that's where it should be. And I don't get, as a black person, wouldn't you want to know you got a job because you were qualified, not because you were black? I would hate to know I got a job just because of the way I looked. I don't understand why people don't think that's a bad thing. So yeah, affirmative action, DEI, all this stuff might have been needed at one point when things weren't as equal. It's not needed anymore. And autocorrecting the other way is just going to flip things completely and make everything worse. It's got to be balanced in the middle.
DEI, the young person of this generation that you said that feels they're misled by the being mistreated by the DEI.
I'm just using it as an example. They don't hold any institutional power. Young white people don't. They don't have an advantage.
Not yet, because they're young white people. They haven't advanced to where they're middle-aged white people, where the power comes. See, what black people, once again, when you got colleges that denied access to black people, you can't come here. Something had to be put in place. Well, look, y'all got to let some black people come in. Y'all can't just
that started happening long before DEI.
But see, long
before black people were admitted into colleges, HBCUs.
Hold on, let me say what I'm trying to say. My bad. I'm trying to make it clear.
He's trying to do a senior Wences and talk through you. So that,
because you trying to.
No, I get it.
DEI is just a new way of wrapping affirmative action.
Yeah.
Affirmative action had to be put in place because there was the access being denied. So the legislation had to be put in place. Well, look, we can't just exclude all of them. So somewhere along the line, they have to be allowed some access. Okay, that was put in place. Now, fast forward till now, those same things that are put in place for those people back in those generations that are still in place, they're not excluding people from getting to places they're just still trying to keep those doors open so that those black people that were coming through that door can still get in. Because if you remove those, over time, we will be denied the access.
If a black person has lower SATs, right, and a lower GPA, should he get in over an Asian or a white person?
Let me ask you. If all things are supposed to be laid out equal, no, you shouldn't get. If you don't have it,
That's what's
have what
happening.
it takes to get in. No, but
It is happening, and I'm telling you, young white dudes are pissed.
That's
I'm
not the
telling you.
majority of what's happening.
It is happening.
Small part.
It is
As it
happening.
relates to DEI, first of all, DEI has been more beneficial. I'm a former commercial contractor, all right? DEI and affirmative action have benefited white people vastly more so than black people. All you gotta do is look at the business ownership or what have you, and you notice that as long as that white female happens to be 51%, then she qualifies as a minority and a double minority because she's white, she's among the minority in business ownership, and she happens to be a female, right? So you look at that based on population dynamics, and that automatically tells you this whole thing about this whole thing about DEI was number one, not as much targeted towards blacks as much as it was targeted towards minorities, which includes that LGBT,
I agree.
right? So when we talk about that, we need to really deal with the real crowd. And as it relates to the riots, let me tell you something right now. Listen, in the black community, I'll be the first to acknowledge, we do have intractable problems that are not going to be solved in one conversation. But what I'm going to say about that as well as the reason why the black community becomes so infuriated, all right, is when you see gross negligence of justice happen or misjustice happening and nobody does anything. When this guy kneeled on this man's neck, we're going back to George Floyd, look, if he had done something, when he was subdued and on the ground, what was the real reason for kneeling on his neck except to inflict fatal harm? What was it?
I can tell you exactly what it was, and I can tell you why you're not recognizing the problem. Because the opinion polls, and I'm not saying right or wrong, the opinion polls have changed on George Floyd since I last spoke with you. You know why?
Why is that?
All the body cam footage came out. You know what? You know why? Because he was there for 12, 15 minutes, asked to be put in the car, they put him in the car, asked for air conditioning, gave him air conditioning, asked to be taken out of the car, they took him out of the car. He wouldn't stop moving. People have watched it now and go, you know what? It's not what I thought it was. You know how many times he was arrested before that? 9. He shouldn't have been. You know what would have saved him? 3-strike policy. He robbed a woman at gunpoint with a child in the house. And so white people look at it, young white people, right, who you have to understand during COVID, this is a whole generation of people. White people did not have any fucking opportunities during COVID. They didn't get to go to the graduation, college, black, white, all of them, right? It's a generation that's pissed. Rightfully so, they got screwed. I think we can agree on that. They're going, I watched my city burn down for a guy who was arrested 9 times and committed violent crimes against women. What?
Now, you know.
See, that's the thing when it comes to this stuff is basically saying he's saying injustice because what Derek Chauvin did to George Floyd, which there, like Stephen Crowder was saying, he was doing this. He was doing a normal police technique that's been approved and done for decades. But like George Floyd should have never been out on the streets. He had a gun to like a pregnant woman at one point. He's robbed liquor stores. He's robbed gas stations. He's been arrested so many times. And this is what happens with the soft on crime issue, where you're not keeping people in prison for doing these crimes. You're just releasing them back out, and then they just recommit and recommit and recommit. That happens all the time. And there's also a lot of times where people will get arrested, the police will bring them in, and then they won't even get actually charged with anything. The DEA will just release them back out. And then those cities will be like, well, crime rate's fallen. Yeah, because you're not charging people with anything. And that creates this whole different issue where they're lying about how safe a city is. So then people will go there and be like, oh, it's now safe. And then they'll be victims of crime. And then those crimes won't be recorded. So it's just another way of lying to the American people on how safe your cities actually are. So, and he's talking about like injustice, like that. This is a dumb point there because, like I said, the injustice was him being on the streets to even begin with. Just like the man on the subway train in North Carolina, he should have never been let out on the streets. That's an injustice to everyone in that community that person is allowed to be out and about walking. But let me get to my third clip now.
About it is, when you talk about white America being pissed, white America is going to always find a reason that doesn't fit their narrative or what have you. But what white America fails to talk about, and what never ceases to amaze me, is the fact that the biggest threat is not going to come from blacks. The biggest threat is coming from within. You look at the average person that's been committing some of the most heinous crimes over the days, it's 22 to 29-year-old white males, right? Look at how ready they were.
It's just not true, man. Violent crime, you just said, like you said, a small percentage of the country, about 12 to 13%, 50% of the violent crime. But the murder, a 12 times likelihood.
That's a skewed stat.
If you just, so you don't listen to them?
No, I said that particular stat is skewed.
It's not skewed. These are from the FBI, DOJ. And you know what else we look at? We look at Roland Fryer from Harvard, who conducted it, black guy, black professor, really respectable guy, honorable man, conducted a study, and he came out and he said, yeah, all of my research says that black men are 0% more likely to be shot by police officers than whites. Black people got so mad at him, he reconducted the study, a black man from Harvard, and he came to the same conclusion, and now he's not black enough.
Wait, so let me see if I understand you clearly.
Yeah.
You're saying,
So I actually remember this study. I completely forgot about this until I watched this. There was a black professor from Harvard that did a study about police brutality, police violence. I think this was happening shortly after the whole George Floyd thing. And there was people literally on campus wanting him to be like kicked out of Harvard because he released this study. There were so many people threatening him to not release the study. There was so much pushback from him releasing a study about it that just proves that it's all pretty much equal. And I doubt he wanted, and this just shows like the authenticity of him, where he was shocked by it. He probably didn't expect it at all. He was like, wow. And he still released it because he wants the truth out there. But it didn't fit everyone's narrative that they thought of. So then they're like, oh, well, this is wrong. This is skewed. And you can argue some studies can be skewed. Like I think a lot of food studies where they'll say like, oh, this ingredient's safe, or that vegan is better than meat diet and stuff like that. Some of this stuff can be skewed because there's other factors involved. But what he's saying here is there's no proof. I've ran this study twice. I've looked at all the factors. There is no proof here. And then people are just raging because what they think is true isn't true. And instead of accepting the fact that their whole thought process this whole time was wrong, they have to say that study's wrong. I'm right because of what I see. And then this is also where the media plays in a huge factor. The media blows up certain narratives when it comes to, say, murders. If there is a black man murdered by a white man, that will be blown up everywhere. But if it's the other way around, it won't be. Like, for example, remember Daniel Penny in the New York subway? He was a scrutinized for a year and a half when he was on trial because he defended everyone on the train from that crazy black guy. But people tried to say he deserves to be locked up in prison forever for self-defense. All the media talked about that for like a year and a half, and then he was acquitted. And then you have Irina Zarutska the other way around, a black man killing a white girl, and the media barely even touched it. And in fact, when the media started talking about it, they were blaming MAGA for blowing it out of proportion and lying about how bad cities are. It's just crazy. This is how powerful the media is right here. And I'm so glad that over time, the mainstream media is slowly dying.
According to this guy's statistics, right, that black people are 0% less likely to be shot by a white police officer.
A liberal professor at Harvard, yes, and he conducted it twice. Because black people said what you're saying. He goes, look, I was as surprised as you. I was trying to find how much worse it is. My data showed me it's not. He reconducted the study an entire time. Now, he did come to the conclusion that an officer is 18 times more likely to be shot than a black man by an officer. This is a black liberal who studies statistics. At what point do you listen to him?
And I don't believe him.
That's skewed too.
Institution, and if he comes out and says something of the sort, there's no telling the backlash that he may not get. Listen, there are token blacks in every society. I mean, all you have to do is look back throughout.
And there we go,
right?
And Uncle Tom, this guy, like, come on.
No, but here's my thing, Steve. Right? I'm not alleging that the guy wasn't Uncle Tom, but let's be frankly honest. How many shootings have happened in most recent history that have involved black men that have been unarmed, and you sit here and use that analogy that black men are analogy times. Listen, as a totally blind individual, listen, I'm even apprehensive. There was an incident where the police stopped us, and it was my cousin and I. My cousin is a retired military vet or what have you, right? And immediately when we got out of the car, out of fear of possibly being shot, the first thing I did was raise my cane and say, "Officer," I said, "listen, I am totally blind." Before we get out of hand with this, right? Now, I shouldn't have to react like that. But when you start looking at what's really happening in this country, many times because see, here's the deal. I don't care if you put on a uniform. You can't legislate the heart of a man and his intent, all right? And many times these officers do allow that badge to give them impunity to operate and exercise their racism. Let's be honest here, Steve.
Some of them do. By the way, I just find it funny that when I came up and shook your hand, you didn't tell me you were blind this whole time. I was like, I must have woke you up. You could have said, dude, I'm blind. I was like, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. This whole thing. You just throw that out there like a cluster I'm like,
Say you should have waved his cane when you came in.
I feel like an asshole in the middle of the room.
That's what I told you when you said, "Is he sleep behind the glasses?" I was like, "No, he just can't see you."
Hey, look, I thought you was making a joke. I said, oh my God, here's this condescending asshole here.
It's okay. He forget he blind sometimes.
I had no idea.
Nah, man, but you know, being
Yeah, but I do. But here, yeah, I agree. You can't legislate what's in a man's heart.
Yeah.
But you can't throw out everything. You can't go, that stat skewed. That black guy from Harvard who was always a liberal who did it twice, it's skewed. You can't throw it out.
How often do you see black police killing unarmed white people?
Actually,
How often do you see
rarely.
that? How often do you see that?
well, I tell you, actually, the stats show that when you're dealing with armed white people versus black armed people, white armed people are more likely to be shot by the cops than black.
White armed people are more
White
likely
armed
to kill
people.
police officers. Look
White
at what
armed
happened in
people, yeah.
Kansas where those five police
Let's call the
officers
stats
gunned
a
down.
wash on that. Here's what I do know. Everyone wanted the body cam footage, and I agree. I was like, we should have body cam footage. We should have accountability for police officers, right? And we were to believe after the era of, remember, we went through Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Mike Brown, obviously George Floyd. There were so many that you could use as examples. We thought that we'd have a rash of body cam footage showing us the police brutality. You haven't seen body cam footage of note in the last year. Once that footage came out, it's about a 20-to-1 ratio where you see someone getting violent with an officer. We have not seen what we thought we would see. And now people are going, okay, so maybe not the body cam footage, right? We thought we'd see all the abuse.
Wait a minute.
I think that's the biggest thing here where I fully support body cam footage. I think that's been a great thing with police. And I think it's proven that, one, if there was police brutality right before body cam footage, it's not going to be there anymore because a cop doesn't want to lose their job, right? They're going to hold back. Sometimes they hold back a little too much, but they're going to hold back. So it stops it from that perspective of, say, if it was happening as much as people were trying to say it was. And then also, we're literally seeing the proof of it. So when you see in the news of like black man, whoever his name is, gets shot by a white cop, and then BLM is like getting ready to riot and burn down the city and march, right? And then all of a sudden the body cam footage will be released, and it'll show the black guy charging at the cop with a knife, running, and it's like trying to kill him. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, this was justified. This cop backpedaled for 30 minutes, gave him all the time in the world to stop. He refused to, so he had to shoot him. It's justified at that point. He was fighting for his life. And that's been proven with a lot of these body cam footage when the initial outrage will be there and then the body cam footage will be released. And it's like, okay, this was justified. And if there's ever times it's not justified, that cop can be held accountable. Like I still remember it wasn't even body cam footage. I think someone was videotaping it in Memphis. I think it was 4 black cops beating up on some random black guy. And I don't know if they beat him to death or just beat the crap out of him. And it was like, they were all hanging, like it was like a mob thing. And, they were all acquitted of all of that. And I thought that was ridiculous. Like they were clearly just beating the crap out of him to beat the crap out of him. I have no idea why. I don't even remember the full context of it, but it was still inappropriate. They're all in their cop uniforms and they're all beating the shit out of this guy, you know? So body cam footage is definitely a good thing. And it's, I think it can prevent police brutality because people don't want to be caught in that light. But also it shows that this police brutality isn't happening like these people still think it does. People still think because of the media, because of 2020, the summer of love, that cops just want to beat up black people. And that's just not the case. I don't think it's ever been the case. Unless you're talking about recent years anyway. I've heard stuff in like the 90s where it was bad. I don't know. But I'm saying at least the past couple of decades, it has not been the case. Let me put and now get to the final clip.
Know what bothers me about white people, and this is kind of where not everything. Not everything.
But we smell like wet dog or something. I've heard all this stuff.
Let me tell you what bothers me about white people. Let's be honest here, because I work with a lot of white people, so I have nothing against them at all. Let me be honest with you. But the problem the biggest problem that I have is that you constantly get bombarded with the excuses. All right, when you really come down to it, let's be honest, man, and let's be really truthful with one another. Ask yourself, what do you expect when you look at architectural oppression, economic depravity, and social disparity? What would you call it? I mean,
Bad decisions.
Huh?
Bad decisions.
Bad decisions.
Yeah, I think right now in 2025, it's bad decisions. I think everyone can make better decisions.
And you know what? I'll even go here with you. In all fairness, I think that's absolutely true. So my question for you is, how do we move past this?
Yeah. Okay.
How do we move past
I agree with you. I agree. Here's and I think maybe we'll find some common ground here. If we agree there is personal accountability and bad decisions, and I think we also all agree that feminist white are the worst demographic in the country, along with lesbians.
There's a great book that says that they were her product. See, that's what I'm saying.
Like I'm telling you, like believe me, I don't have a. Hold on. Let me just clarify, and I mean that. Angry white feminist bitches and lesbians, because if they didn't vote, we wouldn't have half of the shit. But, and this is one thing I appreciate about black men, that white men are so, black men can talk about these things, and black men are okay being masculine. White men are told it's sexist. There's a lot there. Personal accountability decisions. Now, just take that and apply it. What you kind of just did here is you blamed white people, without realizing it, for systemic discrimination, and that removes autonomy from a white person to be accountable and also rewarded for their good decisions. So if we agree it's bad decisions, personal accountability, we'd all be against reparations, and we'd all be against the criminal justice reform.
I'm definitely for reparations.
I'm for reparations.
See, that to me, you said excuse.
Yeah.
That sounds like an excuse to me.
You ain't paid me back. You ain't paid me for what you owe me. It's
What did I take from you?
You can't start another bill
What did I take from
until
you?
you pay this old bill.
What did I take from you?
You didn't take nothing. Your ancestors.
But you just said you.
When I say you, I meant it as a euphemism.
But can you understand why white people hear it and get pissed off?
Yeah.
Because I can take shit.
But they're not mad about the advantages that were built into their lives.
See, this is the thing that will never make sense to me about reparations. You're in a society now where everyone alive was never part of slavery. There is no person living that dealt with slavery, that owned slaves, that was a slave, right? You don't even have, like, based on the percentage of our population, a lot of people didn't even live through the civil rights movement. Like, if you're under the age of 60, you didn't live through that stuff. So even then, it's like really like out there. But like, reparations would have made sense like over 100 years ago if people alive that dealt with slavery, that were struggling, they deserved direct money. Like I think we gave reparations to the people we put in the Japanese internment camps. Like 40 years later, they went to the people that are still alive. Stuff like that makes sense, right? To give it directly to the victims, to give it to your next generations doesn't make sense because one, a lot of us can't even track our ancestry back that far. So some of these black people that could be receiving these could be black people that came over after slavery. They could have migrated over here just in the last 100 years. You're talking about, and a lot of white people too, their families weren't here before the Civil War. You know, they migrated later on. And a lot of us just I don't even know where my family, I know my family's been in America at least since 1900. I don't know before that though. I have no way of tracking it and my family doesn't know. So, and a lot of these people, you can't track back that far. And then when it comes to reparations too, do rich black people like LeBron James get reparations? Does Jay-Z get reparations? Like, who falls into this category? Because you listen to some people that talk about reparations and are like, everyone should get it. Whether you're black, even if you came here after slavery, even if you came here after the civil rights movement, even if you're fresh off the boat, you deserve reparations. It makes no sense at all. That does not make sense. It should not happen. You're making people, because it comes from tax dollars. So people like me and other white people would have to pay black people for something I didn't do and for something they weren't a victim of. How does that make sense? It will never make sense.
So you want young people to pay? Sounds like an excuse.
Nobody wants to address. And
Sounds like an excuse.
Even without paying us back, Steve. No, my thoughts are on this here. Give us an opportunity to exercise our ability and our autonomy. Let me give you a perfect example. There's a gal right now. Her name is Joy Reid. Look up her.
I know Joy Reid. She's out of her mind.
Look up her educational background. You don't think Harvard gave her a degree just because she was a black person or DEI, do you?
I think she's an idiot.
Okay, so
but not because she's black, but she's an idiot.
Okay, so you're entitled to that.
I think Van Jones is smart, and I disagree with him. Joy Reid has said things that are so verifiably untrue. It's insane.
Okay.
And Joy Reid, I'm pretty sure, admitted she got into Harvard because of DEI, and I think that's why she was so upset when affirmative action was going for schools, because she literally herself said, "I wouldn't have gone there unless it was for DEI."
So, but you know, as a man, I'm gonna indulge you and say, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna indulge you. I'm gonna respect your opinion, your frame of thought on that, right? I beg to differ tremendously, but nevertheless, though, that's why we're having this open discussion. But let's really talk about where we need to go from here on, and that is the fact that black people have every sense of entitlement as it relates to having reparations, and I'm gonna tell you why, right? Because nobody has ever been as more loyal to white people people, despite the treatment, than black people have, right? Nobody. You show me one race. You know what? They make options and opportunities available when other ethnicities come here or what have you that we will never get a chance to have, right? And then they turn around and tell us, stop asking about reparations. Whenever we want to ask for equality and fairness, it's a problem. So white America.
So it's been several $1 trillion. When is it enough?
Wait, we spend $7 trillion on what? What did we spend it on?
Let's go back to Lyndon Johnson model.
Lyndon Johnson, you're talking about the war on poverty? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
1965?
Why was that done?
All right, but here's the deal.
What about the Department of Education?
Here's the deal. So now you're saying the Department of Education. Let's go back to the Department of Education.
Okay, so my point is, these were. Hold on. No, I didn't answer your question.
All right.
The reason that this was given, right, when you're talking about the Great Society program, the reason when you look at the Model Cities program, urban planning, $8 billion into Detroit, adjusted for inflation, the reason that, and I don't know if you know this, black students in this country get more spending per pupil than white students. I don't know if you know that. That's an actual fact. Even in impoverished neighborhoods through public funding. These were the reparations that were asked of white people throughout each decade, given, and then we're told, no, that's not the real one. They were given, whether you like them or not, whether you think they work or not. And by the way, I think they're dog shit. I think we should completely suspend the Federal Department of Education. I think the Texas state could do a much better job, but those were done in the name of racial reparations because they were demanded,
Steve,
and now it's not enough.
You say that, but Steve, listen.
But what was that?
You say we should suspend the Department of
I agree with you, because it's so. Why would they do it correctly?
It's not just because it was done in the name of racial justice that it was done incorrectly.
That's the reason for it.
I'm saying that's the reason for it, but along the way of trying to achieve racial justice, you just did it wrong.
But let me ask you.
That's my point.
You say.
See, that's the thing where there's been other forms of people will say it's like reparations. Like if you look at percentage of population, based on percentage of population, black people are on like welfare and food stamps and all these different social programs more than white people are based on the percentage of the population. You have colleges that will lower standards for black people. You have scholarships and grants specifically for black people. You had affirmative action for colleges up until recently when the Supreme Court turned it down. You had DEI for employers, which a lot of them have toned back on ever since Trump came to office. There have been all these opportunities specifically to help black people. And he started off this clip right here saying that white people just make excuses. But then they have all those different programs and they're still saying it's not enough. And Crowder's like, how about trillions and trillions of dollars? How much more needs to happen? You know, black people are given more opportunities than ever before. There is no excuses for why they can't do things. Because guess what? There's poor white people that are given shitty living conditions at the start of life, growing up in poor areas, who can still make something of themselves. So there's no excuse black people can't either. You can't use this excuse forever where you're like, oh, well, I had a shitty start in life and this. Like, yeah, it's going to impact you growing up. But once you become an adult and you make your own decisions, you can't make that excuse anymore. Eventually, you got to be like, okay, this is my responsibility. These are my choices. I have to make a life for myself. I can't keep saying, oh, this happened to me when I was 3. This happened to me when I was 6. And making that an excuse your whole life because you're never going to make it anywhere. You're just having that victim mentality that you keep trying to push on people. And I feel like, especially in today's society, it's just nothing but victim mentality. Like that's what sells. That's what gets attention. That's what people like try to get money for and stuff like that. There's like, oh, victim mentality. Maybe someone will help me out. Maybe someone will donate to me or feel bad for me and stuff like that. Like, especially like on TikTok and stuff, people like, oh, well, this happened and they'll get a bunch of views and get paid for it, right? It's disgusting, okay? You cannot just victim your way out of every situation. You have to eventually grow up and realize it falls on you. We live in 2025. Everything is more equal than it's ever been. And another thing, too, when it comes to the whole, like, black people can't pull themselves up or whatever, and they need help, immigrants will come over here with nothing and build businesses and build a life for themselves and become rich. Like if you look at the like people from India, Nigeria, the Chinese, the Japanese, they'll migrate over here and they're richer than our white people because they build businesses. They're willing to do that. They're willing to do the hard work. And a lot of people in this country are not. And they just make excuses for why they don't have anything, why they don't have wealth, why they don't have money. And eventually you have to sit back and look and be like, what am I doing wrong? I can't keep making excuses. I can't keep saying because this person's doing this to me, this person's doing this to me. I have to accept responsibility to make a life for myself and be successful. But as long as you're going to keep playing victim mentality, you're never going to make it anywhere in life. But that's pretty much it. These are kind of like what I felt like the highlights were of the Crowder black and white on the gray issues. I like this series way more than Changing My Mind. I think he has a new one of this coming out next week. So I'll probably react to that at some point too. Let me know in the comments what you think about Crowder doing this stuff. I think it's good that he's out doing these like discussions and debates again because he took a little hiatus for a few years. And I think we definitely need more of this in society. Like this is the only way we can come together and kind of meet in the middle is if we discuss the issues, whether they're uncomfortable, whether they're controversial, they need to be talked about. We cannot just keep going like segregated ways and staying in our own bubbles and our own like safe spaces. We need to get out and do stuff like this. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Comment down below what you think about Crowder. Subscribe to my other social medias in the description, and I'll catch you next time.